But now we'd like to turn to our first keynote address for today. This one is called Innovation, Education in Emerging Countries by Professor Dr. Matthes Fleck. Matthes is director of the Institute of Communication and Marketing in Lucerne, Switzerland, and professor for digital business. He holds a PhD from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. His research focus is peer-to-peer networks, digital innovation management, and the platform economy. And since 2015, he's been working in cooperation with Society 3 and is a board member of the World Innovation Forum as well as Society 3. He's going to be talking about innovation, education in emerging countries, as I've mentioned before. Matthes is not only the director, he's also the boss of the institute where I work, and a good friend and colleague of mine. So Matthes, it looks like your presentation is ready. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Douglas, for this very kind introduction. So, yeah, Axel is a good friend, asked me to speak at this, and I'm very glad for this opportunity. So, I'm as a Western person speak about innovation in education in emerging countries. So, I better speak about something I know of. So, I speak about please do not copy what is going wrong in the Western world. So when it comes to education, I could aim for a rather cheap shot and say, well, two of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world and two of the most richest person in the world have been quitters of their university education. So we could stop all this and say, well, quit school, work hard, become entrepreneurs, and all problems are solved. But life isn't always as easy as that. There are, of course, successful graduates in the entrepreneur space. So the founders of Google both have successfully graduated their degrees at Stanford. So we're talking about Sergey Brin and Larry Page here. Well, so what is it? What makes entrepreneurship unique? Well, first of all, it's not a degree program. It's yeah, something between a mindset and also a skill. And recently, I learned a lot about the metaphor of rich and poor dad, and it basically helps us to understand what entrepreneurship is really about and how it is designed. So, Robert Kiyosaki coined this term, and he actually has the metaphor of the poor dad for someone who asks his kids, go to school, educate yourself, and become the employee of a big corporate. While the rich dad always gives the advice of, well, in order, if you want to achieve something in life, you gotta have to work with other people's time and other people's money. So, in basically taking a risk and make people investors of you and make people employees of you. So this is kind of the big two narratives we have here, and the Western world actually very much believes in the poor dad advice of just follow education and become a corporate employee. So when I look at my students, what do I see? Well, if I look in the textbooks, if I look in the case studies we teach, we often see that we have methods and concepts that are purely designed for big corporates, which is not bad because a lot of people work in big corporates and big corporates very often have great success. However, it's kind of yeah, very kind of monoculture we have here because much of the material is aligned along these concepts. When I look into journal research, and you can see lots of academic journals in my background, well, then we talk about a world where each article within these journals has labor costs on university side of 100, 150, up to $2,000. And we're talking here only about social science, not about medical science or even more expensive sciences. So we're talking about a world where very few rich entities like Western universities create knowledge for other very, very rich and very kind of monolithical institution. So that definitely does not represent the diversity in the world, which research actually should do. Thirdly, and I have to include myself, entrepreneurship is often taught by people who always work in the public sector, at least at universities. So by people following the poor dad advice of never taking a risk, joining the public sector, entrepreneurs in the Western world are educated, at least school-wise. So this may not be the wisest background. At least in terms of advice, maybe in terms of methodology. So, and then we have something that my students always experience, some kind of family wealth effects, which create a lot of dependencies. So it is easier that they have to provide for a family themselves, or want to provide for a family, and very early seek the security of being employed, or that we have parents who actually give their kids money to buy very early in their life a real estate in order to save money and create some wealth. But by doing so, they have highly dependencies to pay their monthly mortgage, and that also creates very strict employer regulations. So my job was to talk about innovation education in emerging country, and I tell you how poor the Western world is by complaining that people buy too early real estate. That, of course, sounds like a paradoxon. So we have a so what here. Well, in brief, students in the Western world, I very often experience seek for secure income job in big corporates. If at all, they take ventures, they do it as a side gig, and not many are risk taking. And what does this mean for you? Well, to me, this means a lot of good news for entrepreneurs in the emerging countries. But I might like to give you some advice from our perspective on traps you may not should step in, or on obstacles ahead of you. Um, Western schools are a very good entry card for corporates. However, I do not see them as the best entry card for becoming a successful entrepreneur. Um, because if you take the concept from Axel really to the end, that basically no creativity exists, but new things basically are made out of experience, you can consider education as only one source of experiences, but not the only source. And if we complete this thought to the end, we're talking of a world where your experience make you unique, and you have probably a lot of them. So you should strive for unique experience rather than for standardized experience out of big programs that are designed to cater the needs of big corporates and so on. So if we apply the deep innovation design model that actually is working on, and where I had the pleasure to work with multiple times with Swiss teams, with teams from Africa, with teams from Asia, I like you to look at the path to innovation success and reflect on where really that kind of education is needed that is taught on Western schools, or where you actually have a privilege that you do not have to unlearn what is taught at these places. when it comes to Dream Team Assembly, we heard it from Peter, and also the founder of FastHacker. You probably have a lot of talent around you, a lot of course, well-educated talent in terms of skills and in terms of working techniques. So it actually, you are in scars of a dream team around you. And yeah, for sure, universities are a place where you could meet such people because they are somehow a hub. However, it's probably not the only place where you discover them. Um, the innovation opportunity discovery and the deep innovation design is actually the most crucial part, in my opinion, when it comes to the innovation process. And as I tried to point out before, within the innovation opportunity discovery, it is very much about your unique experience. And I as much as I love to work at a university and as much as I love to teach my students, I beg them to make their own experiences and to go out in terms of collect working experience, to travel, to go back to their home countries, because these unique experience in combination with knowledge about solid management models or solid financial knowledge, but the experience in combination with the solid knowledge, they actually create the experience that somehow can form new ideas. So, and when it comes to idea validation, that's probably a space where university isn't helpful at all, because science is actually our a system that is designed to have almost no margin of error. And if you operate in a speed with no margin of error, or with a very, very low margin of error, you're not in the entrepreneurial space. So if you apply scientific methods only, and that's what you are taught in many universities, you're probably too slow. So what you need is you need methods that are quick and give you the 80% security in 20% of the time. And yeah, of course you can fail, but if you aim for scientific accuracy, you're probably way too slow. That does not mean that you do not need scientific accuracy in every part of life, but idea validation under the circumstances taught at typical Western style university is probably too slow. Although I very much appreciate this accuracy when it comes to pharmacy or when it comes to all kinds of medical or physical um, inventions. So, and the disruptive moment is actually something that is not created in the university safe space with funding at a funky startup space. This is created in the market. And this disruptive moment means you have to go out, you have to leave this kind of security. And very, very often, university gives you the comfort to double check, to look back, to in terms of reflect the idea in order to get the challenges you need. So in summary, Douglas, I see your face, which is Western education is a standardized experience to cater the needs of big corporates, if I have to be drastic. Entrepreneurs from emerging countries may better rely on their own experience rather than experience of those from others from other contexts, and your unique challenges and the unique combination of experience you made, that can create unique opportunities if you employ methods like the deep innovation design model very, very carefully. So this in brief was my keynote, and I think for the first time in life I stayed within a 15-minute time limit. I think Douglas can confirm this.
Yeah, I was put in the very delicate position of having to gently nudge you off of the virtual space, you being boss, and I just discovered also that I am your poor employee. So thank you for that insight. Matthes, thank you very much also for the talk. You have reinforced a lot of the message we've been hearing in the last couple days. Education has taken something of a beating, so I think it's a good idea also that you pointed out that Google, everyone knows them, is also a product of a Stanford dissertation. And so education isn't the worst, but it may not be the best, especially when it comes to complex situations in emerging countries and markets that we see these days.
and
So
and,
thank you
and
very
not the
much.
only.
And not the only, exactly, not the only. I believe we'll be seeing you soon for a success story coming up. So enjoy the rest of the morning, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Matthes, thank you very much.
Thank you for this opportunity.